Hello, everyone, and welcome to our LinkedIn Live in collaboration with FarEye, the first choice for all of your last mile software needs. My name is Sarah Barnes-Humphrey. I'm the founder and host of Let's Talk Supply Chain and Blended, and I'm joined by Stéphane Gagné, VP of Products at FarEye, for our session today. So, welcome, Stéphane. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Sarah. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah. So, Stefan, before we find out more about what we're going to be talking about today, can you just introduce yourself for the audience? Tell us who you are, what you do at FarEye, and what has got you excited or intrigued in the industry right now.
As VP product, really, I'm part of the team that drives the product vision and development. Um, our approach to doing this is really around listening and working with our customer on their current challenge and helping them really stay at the forefront of last mile delivery. And that boils down to really two things: is really help them drive their costs down while
Mhm.
constantly improving the customer experience.
Amazing. And so, what's got you excited or intrigued in the industry right now? Tell us, what are you excited
Oh, lots of things are going on right now. And,
about?
you know, last mile is very driven by the economic climate and consumption overall. So while we see a slowdown in the economy, e-commerce orders and home delivery are still up
Mm.
for most of our clients. But the team is more and more around how can we reduce our cost in these challenging environments.
Right.
And what's exciting is that there's so many innovation and progress that is
Mhm.
happening from a technology standpoint that there's so much room to improve and grow over the next few years. And
Yeah.
I don't see the end of it, so that's really exciting.
Well, there's so many options, which we're going to be talking about a little bit later in the discussion. I can't wait to get that started. But I want to let everybody know that today we're talking about delivery and return. So, in particular, their cost, because with talk of recession, rising interest rates, in fact, rising costs across the board, businesses are paying close attention to their bottom lines, which Stefan just mentioned. And with the boom in e-commerce and the way buying habits and customer expectations have changed over the last few years, never has the last mile been more important. So recent stats show that e-commerce return rates can be 2 to 3 times higher than brick and mortar stores, with the average return rate hitting anywhere from 20 to 30%. That's a really big number. And a huge 54% of buyers say that free returns and exchanges are the second biggest influence on whether or not they purchase from a particular brand. So it's clear that while your last mile can present some big challenges, it can also deliver some impactful opportunities. So, how can businesses achieve superior results and customer experiences while minimizing costs? How can they identify what the true costs even are? What are the mitigating factors that they need to be thinking about, and why should they be thinking about this now? Well, we are going to be diving into all of that today. So, stay tuned. Make sure that if you have any questions, you put it in the comments where we are going live, and we will make sure to answer those questions. Now, you want to make sure that you ask those questions today because Stefan's only here with me until 11 o'clock, and we've got an hour to get into everything that I just mentioned. So put your comments in there and we will get to those. But let's set the scene before we dive deeper. So, anyone who listened to FarEye's Let's Talk Supply Chain episode back in 2022 will know the answer to this. But for those that didn't catch the show, who is FarEye? What do you do? How do you help your customers?
FarEye is a 10-year-old company that really specialized in the last mile component of the supply chain. Really, we come in at the end of the process where customer experience is central because this is the last point of contact with the customer.
Mhm.
We're a global player. We're present in every continent. Basically we approach or we attack last mile delivery in a holistic manner. This is what makes us unique. We're not only focusing on certain or one or two business model. We look at all of them. We're attacking different type of delivery, whether it's parcel, big and bulky, control substance. So we have that holistic, in very simple term, we have that holistic approach to last mile delivery. Therefore, when we come in, usually with our clients, is we're able to solve for their current challenges, but we're also being able to be more future-proof by having different capabilities that allows us to scale nicely with them as they evolve.
Amazing. Amazing. Now I want to know what industries you serve, but first I want to give a shout out to Angela, Michael, Rocio, and Mohammed over on my personal LinkedIn. Thanks so much for joining us today. So what industries do you serve? What type of customers? Are you working with small to medium size, enterprise? What does that look like? Let everybody know.
Mostly enterprise. We like size and we like complexity. Industries that we serve are from a shipping side, like really retail, e-commerce. We're also very active in restaurants and food delivery, more commonly pegged as hyper local. And we're also have a very strong base on the carrier side with courier and logistic providers. Both, again, parcel, big and bulky, and other types of deliveries.
Great. So what are some of the questions that you're hearing from clients right now? Kind of on a day-to-day basis, you work with your clients very closely. What are some of the comments? What are some of the questions that you're hearing from them right now?
Yeah, as I was saying earlier, Sarah, there's two broad themes, right? Number one, let's talk about retail, for example. It's really how can you help us reduce our cost while constantly improving the customer experience. Then there's many subtopics. We're talking about route optimization. We're talking about customer experience. We're talking about returns and so on. But broadly for retail, it's really drive costs down while making our customer constantly happier. Courier and logistics is more an area where the big challenges is about being confronted with legacy systems that are simply not able to keep up with the shippers or the retailers' new demands. They want more visibility. They want accuracy in the time of the delivery. They want a system that allows them to track an order from inception all the way to the door of the customer and return. Right now, it's in many different systems, and for shippers, for carriers, like courier companies, having a system that is able to offer multiple delivery options, and also being able also to provide a customized experience on a per brand basis is really the big themes that we're hearing when engaging with them. Restaurant and food is pretty simple, Sarah. It's speed, accuracy, and how can you make the system as self-managed or headless as possible. Like, you have your drivers, but everything else should be 100% automated.
Yeah, absolutely. And just so everybody knows, in the comments, we have a couple of resource guides that FarEye has provided to us for the audience. So go and check that out in the comments. If you're on my personal LinkedIn, I'll be adding that just after we end the show. So go and check out those resources. And Jerry, I do see your question, and we're going to get to that in a minute. But it's interesting that you're talking about options. So I recently read or saw an Instagram post about returns for a particular online retailer, and they gave 4 options. And one of the options was, I think, to return the garment and also get 130% off your next order. And of course, they chose that one because the other options were either to keep the garment or I think it was they could return it. But the last option was this 130% off, plus they get to keep the garment or they get to return it. I can't remember which one it was. But those four options were so intriguing to a client that they actually posted it on Instagram and said, wow, like this is customer service. These are the kind of options that I want. You know, that's what you're talking about here, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And when it comes to return, it's the perfect example of how can you turn a tricky situation
Mhm.
into an opportunity for your brand.
Yes, and a
So
marketing
there's a lot.
opportunity. I mean,
Yeah, absolutely. It's there's a lot of experimentation when it comes to returns,
yeah.
and some are pretty extreme, as the one you just described.
That one is pretty extreme. All right, so let's take a closer look at the landscape of the industry right now. What are some of the key challenges within last mile that we need to really be aware of and thinking about?
Yeah, last mile is number one is again it's cost. Like it's a costly endeavor. When you look at the entire supply chain, it's that moment where you stop to do bulk, right, and you go one on one in performing a delivery to a door. So it's pretty expensive as
Mhm.
part of the overall elements. And customer, the other thing is everybody wanting that perfect experience where the delivery is performed very quickly. Any moment I can check where at what stage the delivery is at. I expect it to be perfectly on time because, as you have seen, Sarah,
Mhm.
some have some solutions like FarEye have started to offer very accurate time of arrival at home, so
Mhm.
there's no waiting. And as you described with returns, expectation are very high when it comes to providing multiple options for pickup, for delivery, with schedule, and so on and so forth. And the other element that comes with that also is the expectation around sustainability.
Yeah.
I want great delivery, but I want them also to be responsible for the
Mhm.
environment. So, including capabilities in terms of tracking and optimizing electric and other low carbon emission vehicles is becoming very central. And as I was saying, the last point is really the complexity.
Mm.
The fact that customer have to accept that for a delivery person, every delivery is a new delivery. A new address is a new delivery for them. So they have
Mhm.
to navigate traffic. They have to understand building entrance guidelines.
Mhm.
They have to navigate dogs and other
That
hurdles
is true.
that makes every delivery a challenge or a new challenge, right?
Yeah. 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 I would have a problem with that. I'm good with small dogs, but big dogs, I'd be like, I'm just gonna put it at the end of your driveway. And
Oh yeah,
then
yeah,
that
yeah.
wouldn't be good for customer service, right?
As part of my work, I make a point to go on routes, and
Uh-huh.
accompany driver, and I have only immense respects for those guys and the
Mhm.
hard work that they do to make our life better and easier. So yes,
Absolutely.
it's
I want to give a shout out to Sarah and AJ over here. And Angela made a good comment. I'm seeing more Amazon resale of returns at local stores. So they are taking back those returns and we are seeing them back on the market, which when we talk about sustainability, that is part of that circular. And when we're thinking about the options for those returns, that's a big deal. So let's also talk about the challenges that change in different parts of the world because,
mm,
Canada, you and I are Canadians, just so everybody know. We've got two Canadians on the screen here today. But just
yeah.
in Canada alone, we are spread out. right?
Hmm.
We've got lots of rural areas. We've got lots
Yeah.
of really complex delivery locations. And so how do these challenges on the last mile side change when we're thinking about, the Middle East and Asia, Europe, population density, for example?
Yeah, yeah. So you've put your finger on the one for Canada. Population density is certainly key here, and Canadian have to accept that depending on their location, not
Mhm.
every delivery is going to be free, because sometimes I hear vehicles, Sarah, in Canada traveling. Um, 2,500 kilometers. So
Mhm.
what is it in miles? Maybe something like 1,500 miles
Right.
on routes to
Mhm.
perform all the deliveries. Other region of the world, GSI content provider are not fully developed, so map and address accuracy is
Mhm.
still a big challenge. And at FarEye, we're trying to alleviate that by providing some smart solution that increase and improve the accuracies of those address geocodes that we get. So very central to the discussions that we will have with own fleet carriers in Asia and the Middle East.
Mhm.
Europe is really big on sustainability,
Mhm.
and it's driven both by customer expectations as well as government policies. So we get a lot of demand there in terms of traceability and operationability of low carbon emission
Mhm.
fleets.
Absolutely. And, I just recently had, like, for our follower of the month, I had to send a mug to France to our follower
Okay.
of the month. And both times for the first two deliveries, it ended up at her door broken. So I
Hmm.
went back to the company and I said, "We've got to deliver it one more time. We need another mug because it's been broken." I said, "I don't know what they're doing. Are they throwing it at the door or what's happening?" And the third attempt at delivery, they actually came back and said they couldn't find the address. And I was like, "What do you mean? You've already delivered twice to this address."
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you
Room
talk
for improvement on all of this in the
yeah,
packing and then the handling.
when you talk about address locations and things like that and how they're the unsung heroes because of the different things that they have to navigate,
Yeah.
it changes from day to day. It almost changes from hour to hour.
Totally. So big components here that are being added that are improving accuracy is in part of the world we're having access to a tremendous amount of real-time data such as weather changes or traffic changes that allows us to change on the fly the
Mhm.
routes and the itinerary of the driver, something that was not possible 5 years ago.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the report that we've put in the comments and the resource and the research that you've done at FarEye to really provide, some helpful insights and data points. So give us the lowdown on the report. What can people expect from this particular resource? Why did you decide to put the report
Mhm.
together?
Yeah, the thought process behind the report was that there was a lot of information out there when it comes to uh, end customer expectation and behavior when it comes to last mile deliveries.
Mhm.
Like, but much less in terms of understanding the retailers and the carriers point of view on the states of last mile delivery. So basically, that was more of a business to business research that we wanted to do to both better understand our clients'
Yeah.
expectation as well as potential clients and user around the world. And the thinking was that let's use that research to educate our roadmap to shape the vision of the product, but also share that information with our surrounding partners, clients, and so on, to have them also have horizontal view of what's the thinking and what are the trends and the challenges in the industry. So basically, our clients found it very useful to be able to go back to that research and say, hey, what I'm experiencing, is it the same thing in the other part of the industry or in other parts of the world?
Yeah, and I think it's also important. I was just recently at a conference, a supply chain conference in Miami, and one of the panel discussions that we had was around understanding not only your customer as a service provider, or a software provider, technology company, not only understanding your customer, but also understanding your customer's customer. And I think this particular resource can really help not only understand what everybody else is going through in the market, but also how they're thinking and how it can benefit your customer's customer, right? So talk to us about what can we find inside this resource? What can people expect from reading it?
The research, I would say broadly, I think you'll get a good feel of what are the trends in the last mile industry, what are the macro movements when it comes to business model, where people are going, or where is their mind in terms of owning their own fleet versus being completely outsourced. What are they doing and how are they integrating with emerging new networks such as crowdsource players, right? Such as DoorDash and Uber and so on and so forth. We go in depth in the delivery cost driver, like what are your big costs and how have they changed, and how do you expect them to change in the near future. Also, we're going deep on what are the big barriers to a perfect delivery. What are the big challenges that they are encountering in terms of making that perfect delivery? Is it visibility? Is it orchestration solution? Is it communication with the customer? All of these details. The retailers, the different participants are pretty generous also about telling us what are their different challenges in order of priority. So you can see what's big and what's not. I can speak more about this, but also, of course, we're a technology company, so we're going deep about their technology challenge and how technology is becoming more and more central to achieving superior last mile delivery, using technology as a differentiator in their last mile business.
Absolutely. Now, I want to say hi to Drew on my personal LinkedIn. Remember to get your questions into the comment box so that we can get to that in a little bit. But I have a question for you because you mentioned perfect delivery. Yeah. Does that exist? What is a perfect delivery? And does it change by customer? I would assume so, right? Or is the end consumer expecting the same kind of results every single time, no matter who it is?
Yes, I believe the perfect delivery exists. So answer your first questions. How does it materialize? I think it starts at the decision process where, as you just said, every consumer is different. So providing them with as many options as needed for them to find the spot on one that meets their need. Is it a pickup at the nearby store? Is it delivered? Is it delivered at a specific time window, and so on and so forth? So that refinement is happening, and the retailer that shine, I believe, in the market are those that have understood that more option is better, right? And then I think in terms of delivery, I'll take the analogy, Sarah, of technology. Technology becomes amazing when you don't see it anymore. right? It's completely seamless. And I think the perfect delivery is the same thing, is arriving and the box is perfect at the right location and you just have to pick it up.
Hmm.
So, and
I love that.
this is what the entire industry is striving for, is to make like last mile delivery as seamless and as magical as possible without you seeing all the details and the friction in the process.
I love the use of the word magical. So 12:14, it says it's going to be delivered to my door. 12:14, it's delivered, and then that green light goes off on the Amazon Alexa. Right? That's a perfect
Perfect.
delivery.
And Alexa starts to speak to you to tell you all the details, and there's a personalized note that comes with the delivery. And when you unpack it, it's like Christmas, you know?
Magic butterflies come out of the package. Anyways,
There you go.
so let's talk about cost, because one of the
Yeah.
things that we've mentioned sort of over and over and over again since the beginning of this conversation are costs, right? Everybody's thinking about it. Everybody's talking about it. So what kind of costs are we talking about? Because with the boom in e-commerce, delivery and return costs have changed a lot. So what do we mean by cost? What does that look like? What should everybody be aware of?
Yeah, and cost is can be very, very different per geography, per industry. Just give you two extreme example. You know, you buy an oversized fridge, and you want it to be delivered, unpacked, installed, and tested. Can be very, very different than a small package delivery that is just dropped at your front door. So the way I think we look at it when we speak to our different partners, clients, is cost of last mile delivery as a percentage of your total delivery, right? And again, different part of the world, labor costs, fuel costs, everything is so different. So to come up with an exact number that is like the industry standard doesn't exist. But the percentage of your overall cost of the product that you sell is a common KPIs that can travel easily by geography and industry. Broadly, what we see, Sarah, is that in terms of last mile delivery, you know, for something that would a product that costs $100, you would expect the cost of the delivery between $7 and $10 in North America, and usually a big chunk of that cost is covered by the purchase price. Either you pay a premium for the delivery, or it's written free, but it's never free. You know, it's part of the price you're paying, right? What is more of an unknown, Sarah, is around return. Returns are amazingly expensive because let's take that same $100 example, or let's take that example of the cup that you've tried to deliver, and you say that same product that cost probably that you sold for $100 can cost as high as $50 to $60 to return back.
Wow.
Because as you described, like you have the customer exchange, a customer service interaction, like you need to speak to or email or go through a return process. You have the cost of the picking up and the returning of the product. But as you described earlier, also you have all the costs pertaining to repurposing that product, inspection, cleaning, repackaging, and all this. So basically look at it that way. Something that you wanted to buy or a retailer wanted to sell you for $100 ended up costing you $50, $60 just to handle, and you didn't make a sale because the $100 you refunded, but you end up on your P&L with a $50, $60 cost on your thing. So where we see a lot of business model or profitability of your last mile delivery being challenged is in the return policy definition and management. Lots of gray area there and lots of room for improvement.
Well, and I also think, the definition of cost as well. You talked about the magic of delivery. What do you want that magic to look like? And sometimes that's going to increase the cost, right? Is it the box?
Totally.
Is it what's inside the box? Is it that handwritten note? Because that's going to cost you some money as well. But on the other hand, it's also, what does it cost to keep a customer? What does it cost to get a return customer? Those
Mhm.
are opportunity costs that I think we also need to mention, because at the end of the day, we want people to, like, look at that example with the returns. She put it on Instagram, it got a huge amount of reach, and I'm sure they got a bunch of sales and new customers from that particular example because she put it on Instagram.
Right.
So those
Yeah.
are some of the opportunity costs that I think sometimes we miss when we think about, we need to reduce cost, we need to reduce cost. Okay, but what does that magic look like?
Yeah, yeah. And the answer is I think the way to approach this, based on what you describe, is not just, and we bring it up all the time, is not just to say how do we reduce costs. Is
Mhm.
that how do you increase the lifetime value or the
Mhm.
profitability of that customer
Yeah,
by making maybe a short-term concession, but being immensely rewarded at the end.
absolutely.
You were asking me earlier about some emerging trends. I'm sure you've heard and seen those, but they're interesting to bring up. Where with return policy that are free returns, a lot of
Mhm.
times you see behavior like I don't know if you heard about the term bracketing, where
No,
basically you try before you buy. You say, I like this sweater or I like this pair of shoes, but you're gonna order it in two different or three different sizes and
I've
three
heard of that,
different
yeah.
colors,
Mhm.
and you try them all and you just pack them. A luxury company like Essence or Pret-a-Porter in Europe have actually experimented with in high network city and high density city, a network of driver that basically drive with a wardrobe of the different product. They'll give them all to you. You try them in the intimacy of your home, and you
Uh-huh.
give back the driver the ones that you don't want to keep.
Wow.
Um, the other thing that we've seen and it's costly, is really everything around wardrobing,
Mhm.
which is basically you buy something for the period of the return and then you return it at the end of the cycle. And some last year extended return period that we've seen can go as high as 190 to 120 days. So
Wow.
people buy things for that period and they simply return it at the end of the process,
Right.
and that's costly for the retailers.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I know a lot of people that do that. They buy multiple colors and sizes and different things like that, and then they return what they don't want.
Mm-hmm.
And so, how do we start reducing the costs of delivery and returns? Let's talk about the opportunities here. Where should people be looking for some of those, maybe savings, reduction in cost, that kind of thing?
Yeah. Like when it comes to forward deliveries, like broadly, and I can speak about teams that are more operational in the background, for sure, for sure. Before we get into the details, looking at your forward and your return delivery policies is key. It's all start with what you're putting on your website, what you're setting in terms of expectation, and how these communication will drive customer behavior. You really can move the needle with just looking at that. But then after that, when you accept the notion that you have to perform that delivery or you have to perform that return,
Mhm.
like things that are we're working on a day-to-day basis, is how do we help our customer with address validation, so we reduce the number of errors going by going at the wrong address,
Mhm.
and therefore reducing your successful number of delivery on the first attempt. The other thing is also around route optimization, like making more efficient route by reducing the distance being traveled between each delivery. Big trends on carrier diversification, basically shopping around between different carriers so you have the best rates for each of the delivery, and by keeping those carriers on their toe and competitive one against the other. The other thing also is best way to reduce cost is to make sure that you have that 100% visibility from order to home, right? So there's no gap, there's no error, there's no problem with change of custody throughout the process. So having that full visibility and also having it in one system, so you don't have your employees or your team or your customer success representative having to move around from one system to another to try to assist a customer is a great way to reduce costs. And as we said, of course, returns, we can reduce costs by looking in depth, and we're doing it at the return policy itself. But also return, the more you make it low touch by automating the process, not having to speak to a customer service person and generating the label, the instruction, all in an automated way, make it self-serve, is a great way to reduce your cost in that area.
Yeah, and this report actually provides some really great stats as far as percentages and what all of that looks like. Can you just cover a couple of the stats that we can that we're going to be able to find and see and read about in this report?
Yeah, it's good that you sent me in that questions ahead of time, so I could jot down. I'm going to read a little bit more of those because there's quite a bit of data. Of course, we spoke like central to the research is the fact that costs must go down, and that's what a lot of the team is around. Close second with customer experience. In terms of business model, 50% of the retailers have said that they've opted for an outsourced model in the past 5 years. Wow. But 84% of those are saying that they're encountering a lot of issues, and they're looking for more control, more visibility, and also for ways to reduce those I costs for outsource. Big problem. 40% have said that inaccurate tracking is a big pain point for them, and obtaining reliable and real-time information from their outsourced carrier remains a big challenge for about 33% of the respondents. In terms of return, the number that we've extracted is that the cost of return can go as high as 27-30% of the overall cost of your last mile deliveries. And the costs are really attached to the return process itself. The handling of the merchandise is very high with 46%. And the cost, as I was mentioning earlier, of communication with the customer, 38%.
Awesome. And some really, those are some really, really big numbers when you think about it. Like when you're a retailer and you're thinking about your last mile delivery and your returns, and you're thinking about what else is happening in the market. What is everybody else struggling with? Are they also struggling with these same challenges? Are they thinking the way that I'm thinking? That's what these stats are really helping with, because if you can go into that report and really understand what the market is dealing with and what they're talking about, I mean, that makes a huge difference.
Yep. And to your point, last question at the end, what are you intending to do about those? And what they're saying is 75% are saying that they're looking at upgrading and unifying their last mile delivery technologies into a more evolved system.
Amazing. So I want to get to some case studies or some examples that you can share with us that really show why a focus on delivery is so important. I mean, those stats are really incredible, but how have you helped your customers with ROI? Give us some examples. Paint us the picture of what that has looked like
Yeah,
for them.
yeah. There's tons of those on the website. I'll just give you three example.
Sure.
One, we worked with a leading global furniture retailer. And with them over a period of 24 to 30 months, we were able to increase their on-time delivery by 24%,
Wow.
or increase by 97% the number of deliveries that were performed accurately in terms of committing. Because, with big and bulky, usually you schedule a delivery, and
Yeah.
people sometimes take the day off or half a day off to stay home to wait
Yep.
for that delivery to happen. So delivery accuracy is the North Star when it comes to customer satisfaction as part
And
of those.
and undamaged. So I had a friend of mine who's had 3 refrigerators delivered, and each time they've been damaged, so they've taken the time off, they've done the schedule, like, those are the types of things where you lose customers. So that is definitely very, very important as well.
You lose customers. That's certainly number one. And number two, also, everybody knows how thin the margins are in
Yeah.
retail these days.
Yeah.
So doing this three times, you've basically gone red on that sale, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
how do we fix those are the key challenges. But
Yeah. Mhm.
another, to your example, with an appliance manufacturer,
Mhm.
over 12 months, increase their customer NPS, or the level of satisfaction,
Mhm.
by 15 points over
Nice.
100. So that's like 15% improvement on their CSAT, or their customer satisfaction score.
Mhm.
And we were able to increase their first attempt success, so avoiding those redeliveries that you
Yeah.
just described, by
Huge.
22% for those
Wow.
guys. And in the packaged goods, more like the small parcel business, like reducing 25% the number of people hour that is required per delivery. So how much time do we spend on each delivery? Able
Mhm.
to reduce that by 25%, increase productivity through a process automation by 40%,
Hmm.
and reduce the return rate by nearly half for that specific customers.
Wow, those are some really, really big numbers. And I'm sure,
Yeah.
just the customer satisfaction part as well, going up 15% because of what they were able to do from a delivery standpoint, making that customer experience magical. I mean, you can see the difference of what delivery and returns actually do to that bottom line.
Yeah, and if I was, to give one broad advice to the audience, Sarah, would be to say, like, when you're engaging with a technology provider,
Mhm.
um, don't just look at the requirements. Share with them the business objective that
Mhm.
you're trying to improve, and have them commit and align. At FarEye, this is certainly our approach. We take that consultative approach of understanding the business, understanding the key drivers that they're trying to move
Mhm.
through our relationship, and work as a partner to them in solving for those and improving
Yeah.
those matrix over time.
Understanding your customer's customer, going back to that one. All right, Jerry, we're going to get to your question in just a minute. And if anybody has any questions for Stefan, now is the time to put it in the comments section. So, what's your outlook as we move through 2023 and beyond? Do you have any predictions, trends, or insights that you can share?
Oh, certainly, by seeing what's happening, status quo, and we started the call or the conversation with that, is last mile delivery is very exciting because it's constantly changing, and there's still a lot of runway for improvement. And what we're seeing is, of course, because of the economic situation, status quo is not an option. And I would say the big change that we've seen in the past 24, 36 months is that what was central in 2021 was everything around speed,
Hmm.
right? And get it fast at all costs. But right now it's more cost is becoming more central, and everybody is open to being more patient about their delivery, as long as it's reducing their costs, and also we're doing what's the most responsible thing for the environment. So that sustainability components comes also into the equation between speed, cost, and sustainability. If we look more long term, Sarah, I'm thinking like there's a lot of cool technology that are potentially game changer. Drones have been around for a long time, but there's good movement there with a technological improvement that makes the drone activities less invasive. Autonomous vehicle and delivery robots are certainly things that you're going to see more. So unmanned delivery is happening now, and it's going to become more and more commonplace. The other thing that is very emergent is everything about last mile marketplace, where shipper and carrier comes into a single platform and basically shop for service and rates in a marketplace environment. And as I mentioned earlier, also you're going to see a lot of changes around sustainability to make the deliveries less impactful, both from a policy standpoint as well as a technology standpoint with low emission or zero emission vehicles.
So let's talk about that, because I know that there's some policy changes that we should probably be aware of that are sort of coming out or not out yet. And AJ just asked a question: sustained low carbon emission cost more in delivery. How do we handle that? So talk about the policies that are coming up and talk about how we're going to be able to mitigate that and handle the carbon emission costs.
Well, policies that we've seen is again, and Europe is quite a bit ahead of this. You're going to see some cities in the UK, starting with London, or in France, where basically cities or metropolitan area have ringed the cities. And they've limited the number of trucks that can go into that central area of the city, obliging carriers to basically commingle or bring together the delivery. So instead of, let's say, 10 trucks going into a downtown core inefficiently, they want to basically have 2 vehicles go in, ideally zero emission vehicles. Lots of policies around the world that you've seen there also on zero emission vehicles, like with deadlines that are as near as 2028 and some farther down in 2035. But the shift is happening to zero emission vehicles with pretty stringent percentage on a year-to-year basis, depending on the region. Did I answer fully your questions or not completely?
So the one question that AJ had was, how do we handle the costs of some of those new policies and the carbon emission and things like that?
Well, I think there's no magic bullet there. If there's costs, and what we've seen is that many customers are aware and are actually open to pay a premium for a low emission delivery. So you will see more and more retailer giving 2 exact delivery. One is with a typical traditional fossil fuel or internal combustion engine vehicles, and an option with a zero carbon emission delivery. Sometimes the retailer will bear the cost, right? And sometimes they will transfer the cost, and the customer, I'm certainly one of those that don't mind paying an extra $2 for a green delivery, as long as I know I do my share for the environment.
Well, it's all about options. right? Is what we've been
Correct.
talking about, is the options to the customer. And that's kind of how you combat it. And if you do need to charge that extra $2, providing the option to the customer so they get to have
Yep.
that choice, they get to have you get to empower them to make that decision.
Correct.
Or,
And some retailers that I've even seen is they will reward those customers that are going for the green options
mm,
by special coupons and special promotions to thank them for doing the responsible thing.
very,
So
very cool.
again, turning an incremental cost, therefore an incremental challenge, into again a business and a marketing opportunity to
Yeah.
upsell and make your customer more loyal and happy.
I love that. So now it's finally time for Jerry's question.
All right.
What are the top couple major issues and or processes providers face in final mile white glove delivery? I mean, white glove delivery, is has always been a challenge for logistics professionals. So talk to us just about a few of those major issues.
Um, the first one I would say is around dynamic scheduling.
Mm.
Uh, the one thing with white glove, again, it's at its core, it's scheduled, right?
Mhm.
And if you work in a static model with white glove delivery, your deliveries and your routes can become very, very quickly inefficient. And the best way that we've at FarEye and our customer have is to utilize a more dynamic scheduling and routing model where we provide different time windows that are dynamically created based on the existing list of deliveries that we have to perform. So that's one thing that we've seen as a big challenge, and that can be solved today. Technology can solve this. So broadly, the problem is my routes are costly because they're inefficient. How can we reduce this inefficiency, therefore reduce my cost of delivery? Is
Mhm.
one big thing. The second thing is white delivery is complex by nature. Imagine you walk into a furniture and appliance store. There's many type of couches, appliances, and all of them have different installation procedure, right? How do you train drivers to be fluent in all these different type of
Mhm.
installation? Because white glove by nature is you come in, you go to my room of choice, you unpack everything, you remove all these packing leftovers, and you perform the assembly and the installation on my behalf. So basically, all I have to do when you leave is enjoy that delivery, right? And having the driver being extremely fluent in all these different installation procedures is certainly another big challenge that we hear a lot about. Returns are key. Also, how do you orchestrate again, schedule and organize the removal of something that is
Mhm.
either damage or malfunctioning is certainly key topics that we have to help our customer with.
And a retail example for you to go and check out is Sleep Number. They actually do a white glove delivery service for their beds, and
Yeah.
they have done a really, really good job at doing that. So just an example if you want to go and check it out. All right, we don't have a ton of time left, but we have some really great questions. So Stefan, when you're answering this, we only have like a minute per question or so. So Reza says, what is the biggest concern for setting perfect delivery? See, I knew you were going to get some questions on this. I was like, you said perfect delivery.
Yeah. So what is the biggest concern for setting the perfect delivery? Um, I if I understand that question, and bring me back, Sarah, if I don't
Mhm.
read it,
Sure. Sure.
is what uh, internally we call this the holy grail. Again, that perfect delivery is finding that balance of uh, cost efficiency and making the customer happy, because ultimately the perfect delivery can be amazing, but so cost prohibitive to fulfill that it just doesn't make sense. So for every partner clients that we work with, is finding that balance of providing that ultimate customer experience that best as possible, while keeping this within a framework that makes economic sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so Tom has a question. Do you think that AI would be used to reduce the costs of the delivery process, and how?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're actively working on this. It's on our roadmap. And, um, what does AI do well? AI takes an immense amount of data that would be most likely impossible to consume quickly by human, and process that data very quickly, and provides a solution recommendation, um, with the purpose of the perfect or the optimum outcome. So how do we use AI? Is that we bring machine learning and algorithm in our system to start to analyze and process immense amount of data very quickly, and come back with what we call suggestion or small suggests, ideas, recommendation for the logistic coordinator or the dispatcher to make very quick decision that they would not have been able to do on their own quickly without the support of machine learning and artificial intelligence.
Absolutely. So many great questions. And Jerry says, thank you. Appreciated your thoughts on that particular question. Now, I
You're
have
welcome.
one last question for you. What is one thing? And Reza says, thanks for answering. Great answer as well. So, one more question I have for you. What's one thing that everybody should do, think about, put into action from this particular conversation today? Just one thing.
Oh, what do you think, Sarah?
How do
What
we?
do you think?
Well, I think first of all, they need to go get that resource that you guys put together, the report, go through
No,
it,
it's
read through it.
thanks for bringing me back. But I think the one thing is seek outside expertise. That can support you in your mission to improve your last mile delivery. You're right. We've put some good resources together to help that. Number one is the report that we referred to. It's available online, so you can download it and go in it into details. But also, we've put together some good buyer's guide. We've broke them down by industry, retail, courier and logistic, and big and bulky, because those industries are so different that trying to put this into one buyer's guide wouldn't have served any of those accurately. So starting there, I think is a great start, and again, keeping the customer experience central to your decision process, and making sure that is monitored and achieved successfully, I think is key.
And options. Take a look at the returns options that people have, other retailers have. Take a look at the options that you're providing to your customers. Now, if we didn't get to your question today, I'm going to come back in. We're going to come back in and tag Stefan and team so that they can come back and answer those questions. But in a quickly evolving market, keeping an eye on your last mile has proved to be essential. Businesses need to work hard to understand the true cost of both deliveries and returns. Pay attention to business partnerships and customer experiences, and perhaps get a little bit more creative with their approaches. But the opportunities that superior last mile deliveries can bring are endless. And FarEye is helping customers across the globe to realize those opportunities by turning deliveries into competitive advantages. Retail, e-commerce, big and bulky, and third-party logistics companies use FarEye's unique combination of orchestration, real-time visibility, and branded customer experiences to simplify complex last mile delivery logistics. The FarEye platform allows businesses to increase customer loyalty and satisfaction, reduce costs, and improve operational efficiencies. So if you want to learn more, please go to FarEye.com for more information on how they help turn your deliveries into competitive advantage. And you'll be able to find their eye on the last mile delivery report there as well. Thank you to everybody who joined us today for this fabulous session. Thank you, Stefan, for joining me and providing so many great insights to our audience today.
It was a pleasure, Sarah. Thanks to you.